Hi, I'm Lina. Welcome to Lina's Storybook, where we share the most unforgettable audio novels. Let's get started.
I spent my entire life trying to be the perfect self-sacrificing mother, only to die on the freezing concrete steps of a hospital, abandoned by the son I gave everything to. When I opened my eyes and realized I had returned to the past, I made a silent vow. I would never live for them ever again. Even though you've only been my mom for a single day, I am already completely sick of it. How can anyone in this world be as hopelessly outdated and basic as you? 13-year-old Leo pushed his designer glasses up the bridge of his nose, his face contorted in a sneer of absolute disdain. We were standing in my meticulously clean suburban kitchen, the smell of the organic roast chicken I had spent hours preparing still lingering in the air. My mom is a modern trendy woman, Leo continued, crossing his arms. She gives me space and freedom, and she never makes me feel suffocated. She would never micromanage every little thing like you do. Honestly, Liam is so pathetic for having a mom like you. Good thing you met me. I wrote this book for you. Take it and learn something. Just like in my previous life, Leo shoved a thick handwritten moleskine notebook into my chest. On the front cover, written in bold black Sharpie, were the words "The Ultimate Guide to Being a Mom." In my past life, hearing these cruel words from a middle schooler had sent me into a devastating spiral of self-doubt. Because my relationship with my own son, Liam, had always been strained and distant, I instinctively believed that an outsider's perspective must be the objective truth. I genuinely thought my parenting methods were fundamentally flawed. But that notebook had been the catalyst for my lifelong tragedy. Following its pages, I allowed myself to be molded into a spineless, tireless servant, who asked for nothing in return and never dared to show a hint of anger. Day after day, year after year, I buried myself in the house, serving my husband and raising our son. I never took a single vacation. I never took a single day off to rest. After raising Liam, I went on to raise his children. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. every single morning to prepare lavish breakfasts, and I stayed up until midnight doing chores and tutoring the kids. I repeated this grueling cycle for decades. I had always comforted myself with the thought that even if Liam wasn't good with words, he must be grateful to me in his heart. I never expected that on the day I desperately needed money for my medical treatments, he would look at me with profound impatience and mock me. How can you be such a massive failure? You've lived for 75 years, and you can't even scrape together $1,000 for your own medical bills. Look at Aunt Lily. She has been elegant her whole life, and even in her old age she is in perfect health. But you, if it isn't one ache, it is another. Having a mother like you is nothing but a burden. He had callously left me sitting on the cold concrete steps outside the hospital. I sat there for an entire day, the icy wind piercing my frail bones. As my life flashed before my eyes, the crushing realization finally dawned on me. My son had despised me for my entire life. I didn't know exactly where things went wrong. Was it when I gave up my thriving career and my personal hobbies to stay home, doing laundry and cooking, wholly devoting myself to being a housewife and mother? Or was it when I endured excruciating physical pain, just to save my medication money, so I could buy him the newest gaming console to make him smile? Now, standing in my kitchen with a second chance at life, my mind was crystal clear. The answer didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was that I was going to live this life over again, and this time, I was living strictly for myself. I casually tossed the ridiculous notebook onto the kitchen island and reached down to grab Leo's heavy duffel bag. He froze, his arrogant expression faltering. "What are you doing?" I offered him a faint, serene smile. "Since I'm clearly not a qualified mother, I obviously have no business educating you. It is best if I take you back home right now, so I don't hold you back from your potential." He opened his mouth to argue, but found himself completely at a loss for words. Lily lived in the same upscale gated community as we did, just a short walk down a few manicured blocks. When I pushed open her front door, the first thing I saw was Lily kneeling on a plush beige rug, carefully washing my son Liam's feet in a basin of warm soapy water. Seeing this, Leo instantly flew into a blinding rage. Without even taking off his sneakers, He stormed right into the pristine living room and violently kicked the basin. Water splashed everywhere. "What gives you the right to order my mom to wash your feet?" Leo screamed. "Your own mother is standing right there. Get the hell out of my house." Liam looked at Lily with the deeply wounded expression of a kicked puppy, not even sparing a single glance in my direction. Lily bit her lower lip, perfectly playing the role of the gentle martyr. She spoke to Leo in a hushed, soothing tone. "Honey, today is the school's mother swap activity day, isn't it? Why are you back so soon?" Liam puffed out his chest, feeling entirely justified. "Exactly, Leo, according to the rules. She is my mom today. Your mom is standing right over there." He pointed a finger directly at me, his voice dripping with unmistakable disgust. Leo looked at me with even more revulsion. Despite being nearly 5'7", he stomped his feet like a petulant toddler. "My mom is nothing like that. That is your mom. You two have the exact same eyes and nose." Liam couldn't come up with a retort. His face tightened, turning an ugly shade of red. A second later, tears welled in his eyes, and he screamed at the top of his lungs. "I don't want a mom like her. I want someone exactly like your mom to be my mother." Tears began streaming down his cheeks in a dramatic display. Lily looked up at me with an apologetic, sorrowful expression. "Diana, please don't take the child's angry words to heart. How about this? I'll let him stay at my place for tonight. Once his emotions have stabilized, I'll bring him back home to you." I had lived through this exact scenario in my previous life. Back then, my possessiveness and my desperate need to prove my worth as a mother took over. I forcefully dragged Liam home, twisting myself into knots, trying to mimic Lily's soft-spoken gentleness. Liam gave me an attitude the entire time, refused to speak to me, and secretly told his father behind my back that I looked like an ugly clown, trying to copy a beautiful swan. It was pathetic. This time, I absolutely refused to degrade myself. "I'll leave him in your capable hands then," I said breezily. "He can stay as long as he likes, provided you don't mind the trouble." All three of them stared at me, their eyes wide with shock. Leo was visibly furious, of course. Liam's face lit up with pure unadulterated joy. But Lily's reaction was the most complex. A fleeting shadow of distinct displeasure flashed through her eyes before she quickly masked it beneath her usual veneer of gentle warmth. "Are you sure that is appropriate?" she asked me, testing the waters. Instead of answering her, I looked at Liam. "Do you think it is a good idea?" Liam stared at Lily with fervent devotion. "I want to live at Aunt Lily's house for the rest of my life. Can I?" Lily hesitated for a fraction of a second, before flashing a perfect smile. "Of course you can." Her eyes drifted toward me, clearly anticipating that I would intervene and stop this madness. I simply let out a light chuckle, turned on my heel, and walked out the door. If they loved each other's company so much, they were welcome to have it. That weekend, Liam didn't come home. For the first time in years, I found myself with vast, endless stretches of free time. I could text my old friends to go shopping, catch a movie, or buy new clothes without constantly checking my watch to see if my kid had finished his homework, or worrying about what time he needed to wake up for school the next morning. I slept in until 9:30 a.m., having absolutely no desire to cook. I ordered delivery from a high-end bistro. I brewed a perfect cup of pour-over coffee, sat out on the sun-drenched patio with a good novel, and simply absorbed the lazy, tranquil afternoon. While scrolling through my phone, I saw that my favorite singer was playing a stadium show in another state. Without a second thought, I booked a first-class flight and a luxury hotel room. At this point in my timeline, I hadn't yet completely abandoned my career or myself. I still occasionally took on freelance writing gigs online for extra spending money. In my past life, I poured every cent of that money into my husband and son, and eventually, adhering to the toxic advice in that mom guide, I quit the freelance work entirely to focus solely on them. Now, having reclaimed my life, the sheer freedom felt intoxicating. I was standing in the VIP section of the concert arena, waving a glow stick, when Greg suddenly initiated a FaceTime call. The moment the video connected, the screen filled with the image of Liam's face. Half of it was severely bruised and swollen. Greg's face appeared dark with rage. Where the hell are you? You haven't been answering your phone. Look at your son. Look at what someone did to him. I raised an eyebrow entirely unfazed. Isn't he staying at Aunt Lily's house? Who on earth would dare hit him over there? Liam, his face tense with anger, snapped. Who else could it be but Leo? I shrugged. Well, you must have done something incredibly out of line to make him that mad. Liam completely lost his temper. All I did was call his mom. Mom, is that really a reason to beat me up? I narrowed my eyes slightly. And Aunt Lily didn't try to stop him. Liam's eyes instantly welled with red. And he furiously wiped at his tears. Unable to say a single word, I feigned suspicion. Don't tell me Aunt Lily just stood there and let him hit you. I suppose it makes sense. What mother wouldn't favor her own biological child? Greg sharply cut me off. Don't project your own petty, twisted mindset onto Lily. She has always been reasonable, educated, and kind. She would never harbor such backward, biased mentalities. Here we go again. Every single time I ever dared to question Lily's flawless, angelic persona, Greg would instantly leap to her defense and attack me. It was through this constant, subtle brainwashing from his father that Liam had become so unshackably convinced that Lily was the epitome of maternal perfection. But Greg conveniently ignored reality. He ignored that every single material comfort Liam enjoyed, and Greg's total freedom from domestic burdens, were built entirely on my blood, sweat, and tears. Lily's gentle parenting only ever existed in words. In truth, aside from the day of the mother swap, she had never once allowed Liam to spend the night at her house. But this time, because I didn't intervene, Liam had actually stayed at the Liu household for 3 straight days. I had no idea what had transpired behind those closed doors. All I knew was that right now, Liam wasn't eagerly agreeing with Greg's praises of Lily, like he usually did. Instead, his head hung low in profound disappointment. Greg's eyes darted around shiftily before he proposed his plan. Liam is in a really bad place right now. Whoever tied the knot should untie it. How about this? I'll go over there and stay with Liam for a couple of days. Once the boys have worked out their conflict, I'll bring him home. Since you're out of town anyway. Just as he was gearing up for a long manipulative speech to convince me, I nodded cheerfully. Sure, sounds great. Have a wonderful time, you two. Both father and son looked absolutely shell-shocked. Greg blinked, uncertain. Are you serious? I waved dismissively at the camera. I have to go, bye. I promptly ended the call. In my past life, during that long, freezing afternoon, when my son abandoned me at the hospital entrance, I had a lot of time to think. In a moment of absolute clarity, I had finally woken up. I had lost this battle from the very beginning. I lost the moment Greg insisted on naming our son Liam, a name so clearly chosen because it sounded like Lily. My entire life had been spent desperately trying to grasp a wind that was never meant to stay for me. Since I couldn't catch it, I simply decided to stop reaching. When I finally returned home from my trip, Greg specifically pointed to a delicate, artisan chocolate truffle cake sitting on the kitchen island. Lily went out of her way to buy this for you, he said, his tone dripping with patronizing instruction. Look at how thoughtful she is. Being a single mother and trying to make a living isn't easy yet. She still brings you gifts. You need to learn how to be grateful. From now on, our family needs to do more to support her. I stared at that tiny, expensive slice of cake and let out a sharp laugh. From the day Lily first moved into our neighborhood, she had maintained this immaculate facade of the gentle, smiling, perfect woman. She would affectionately call me sister, and frequently drop off leftover pastries or half-empty bottles of expensive wine. It was only much later, in my previous life, that I discovered those gifts were actually the leftovers from the secret romantic getaways she and Greg took behind my back. I nodded placidly at Greg. I can see she really dotes on Liam. How about we just let Liam live over there permanently? It'll give her some company too. Greg froze. He abruptly stood up from the sofa. Diana, since when did you become so generous? Are you seeing someone else behind my back? His temper flared instantly. You used to be completely obsessed with our son. If he was even half an hour late coming home, you'd be frantically searching the neighborhood. And now you're perfectly fine with him living in someone else's house. I smiled thinly. Lily isn't just someone else, is she? Isn't she the person you trust most in the world? He choked on his words. A second later his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Where were you these past 2 days? Did you go see your ex-boyfriend? Sweating with sudden anxiety, he snatched my phone from the counter, forcefully unlocking it to scrutinize my banking app and credit card statements. If the me from my past life had seen him acting this way, I would have foolishly believed that his jealousy meant he deeply cared about me. Seeing it now, I only felt a profound sense of disgust and amusement. After scanning my perfectly innocent hotel and restaurant receipts, he exhaled a breath of relief. Then, he looked at me with his signature condescension. You're a mother in your 40s and you're flying across the country to act like a fangirl at a pop concert. Don't you have any shame? Let this be the last time. I won't tolerate it again. Having delivered his verdict, he suddenly began bustling around the house, haphazardly packing a small duffel bag. They say that when a person is feeling guilty, they try to look incredibly busy. Greg was the textbook definition of this. He cleared his throat nervously before turning back to me. Liam is a growing teenage boy, after all. There are some boy-specific things that Lily might find inconvenient to handle on her own. I cut him off, waving my hand dismissively. Fine, you go live over there too then. His eyes went wide. He pressed his lips into a thin line, and hurriedly stammered. Lily and I are just platonic friends. Don't get crazy ideas. The kids are going to be there, so it is not like we do anything inappropriate. And even if the kids weren't there, we wouldn't do anything. His desperate, unprompted over-explanation was utterly laughable. In my past life, I rarely saw this panicked side of him, because I was always the one desperately clinging to him, crying and begging him to stay, which only made him despise me more. Now that I genuinely didn't care, he was the one getting nervous. How pathetic. I would never forget the day, at 75 years old, when I finally caught him taking Lily on yet another luxury cruise. When confronted, he had the audacity to scream at me. We just looked at the ocean and the snow together. We never even held hands. It has been strictly platonic for decades. If it wasn't for you tying me down, my life wouldn't be filled with so many miserable regrets. He actually believed that merely abstaining from physical intimacy with Lily equated to absolute loyalty to me. He used that twisted logic to justify taking out all his frustrations on me, subjecting me to decades of emotional abuse. And Liam always took his side, lecturing me, Aunt Lily is Dad's true love. If you hadn't gotten in the way, they would have been married. You've monopolized Dad's whole life. So what is the big deal if he treats Aunt Lily well now? I had endured enough of that hell to last an eternity. After Greg packed his bags and hurried over to Lily's, I calmly packed my own luggage and drove to my parents' house by the coast for a long, peaceful vacation. During that time, Liam posted 3 separate updates on his Instagram story. Finally, God gave me the real mom I deserve. Leo is so annoying. Aunt Lily isn't just his mom. Got into another fistfight with Leo today. My biological mom is probably dead in a ditch somewhere. Hasn't even called once. Not long after that third post, Lily voluntarily called me. Diana, Liam is really missing you. You should come back home as soon as possible. Her usually sweet voice was tight and heavy with exhaustion. It sounded like her flawless mask was finally beginning to crack. I ignored her completely, choosing to return home the day before Thanksgiving. I didn't tell Greg I was coming back. When I pushed open the front door, the house smelled of cinnamon and roasting meat. In the kitchen, Greg and Lily were sitting closely together at the island, peeling apples and rolling out pie crusts. Liam was sitting next to them, happily mixing the spiced apple filling. He looked up at Lily with a bright, adoring smile. Mom, does this filling look right? Lily opened her mouth to reply, but then her eyes caught me standing in the hallway. She leaped to her feet in feigned panic. Diana, don't misunderstand please. What Liam meant was, he wants me to be his godmother. Greg's face shifted uncomfortably. He wiped his flour-dusted hands on an apron and asked, Why did you come back so suddenly? I ignored his question and looked around the room. Where is Leo? It is just the three of you. Liam immediately piped up, his tone smug. That brat got jealous of me. He smashed some of my video games and ran out of the house. He is probably hiding at the park, waiting for Aunt Lily to go beg him to come back. But I know Aunt Lily isn't biased like that. She wouldn't chase him. Lily forced a tight, artificial smile to validate Liam's statement, trying to look perfectly serene, but I could see right through her inside. She was undoubtedly going out of her mind with anxiety. For the past week, she had been sending me passive-aggressive text messages almost daily, hinting that I needed to come collect my son. It was obvious she couldn't tolerate Liam's demanding presence anymore. In that ridiculous mom guide Leo had given me, he claimed his mother was an elegant, poised woman who never lost her temper or got stressed. The truth was, she wasn't immune to anger, she was just an exceptionally gifted actress. But no matter how good the acting, everyone has a breaking point. I raised an eyebrow and casually remarked, "Oh, so that really was Leo I saw out there." Lily shot up from her bar stool. "What happened? Where is he?" I shrugged nonchalantly. "I don't know. He was walking down the street with his arm around some older guys who looked like trouble." Lily's face drained of color. She lunged for her coat, but Greg reached out and firmly grabbed her wrist. Greg offered a reassuring smile. "He is a 13-year-old boy, Lily. He is practically as tall as I am. Don't worry so much. When he cools off, he'll come back on his own. If you run after him now, you're only validating his temper tantrums. Besides, you just promised Liam you'd help him bake his first Thanksgiving pie." Lily's brow furrowed, unable to hide the raw maternal panic in her eyes. Liam grabbed her other hand, emphasizing his father's point. "Aunt Lily, you promised you'd bake with me. And besides, Leo was the one who started it. You can't reward bad behavior by going after him." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Oh Liam, you've got it all wrong. What is wrong with Aunt Lily favoring her own flesh and blood?" Liam glared at me and yelled, "She isn't a basic, narrow-minded mother like you. She treats everyone equally." Trapped by the pedestal Liam had put her on, Lily slowly, reluctantly sank back into her chair. I silently pulled out my phone, snapped a candid photo of the three of them, looking like a perfect happy family, and posted it to my Instagram story. 15 minutes later, the front door violently kicked open. Leo stormed into the kitchen like a hurricane. With a furious sweep of his arm, he knocked the bowls of pie filling, the flour, and the carefully rolled crusts off the counter, sending them crashing to the hardwood floor. Before anyone could react, he grabbed the heavy wooden rolling pin and brought it down hard on Liam's head. Liam didn't have time to dodge. He clutched his head, screaming in agony, as blood began to trickle through his fingers. Almost simultaneously, Greg lunged forward and delivered a brutal, sweeping kick to Leo's stomach. The force of the blow sent the teenager flying backward, until he slammed hard into the drywall. Lily let out a blood-curdling shriek. "What the hell are you doing?" Greg stood protectively in front of his son, his eyes blazing with fury. "You saw him. He has been throwing these unprovoked tantrums since day one. If I don't teach him a lesson, he is going to grow up to be a total sociopath." Tears streaming down her face, Lily threw herself at Greg, pounding her fists against his chest, and throwing handfuls of raw pie dough at him, in a hysterical frenzy. "That doesn't give you the right to beat my son. Why don't you look at your own brat? He has been monopolizing my time, constantly provoking Leo on purpose. Do you think that is right?" Panting heavily, she whipped her head around and glared at me with pure venom. "And you? As his biological mother, don't you feel an ounce of shame standing there doing nothing?" I held my hands up in mock surrender and smiled. "What can I do? My son despises me and idolizes you. Am I supposed to follow that ridiculous manual of yours and serve them both like a lowly maid? I'd rather get a divorce." A sudden spark of hope flared in Lily's tear-stained eyes. Almost at the exact same moment, Greg's expression shifted, his eyes widening with a sudden predatory gleam. In the past, I had sworn up and down that I would rather die than sign divorce papers. My stance had been an immovable wall. That was precisely why Lily had concocted that mom guide to humiliate and break me. She wanted to make me so miserable that I would eventually surrender and leave. In my previous life, I had been too stupid. I endured the abuse and swallowed my pride, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a divorce. In this life, I was more than happy to grant her wish. For a brief moment, Lily was so stunned by my declaration that she actually forgot about her own son groaning in pain on the floor. It took her several seconds to snap out of her daze and rush over to help Leo up. Putting back on her mask of virtue, she said defensively, I didn't mean it like that. Don't try to pin this on me. Whatever marital problems you two have, solve them yourselves. I'm taking my son home." Just before she turned toward the door, she and Greg shared a long, deeply meaningful look. Liam, still clutching his bleeding forehead, rushed forward and grabbed the hem of her coat. "Aunt Lily, don't go. You promised you'd finish baking the pies with me." Lily expertly concealed the flash of utter revulsion in her eyes. She patted his shoulder and offered a tight smile. "Once your family resolves its issues, I'll come back to see you." Liam bit his lip and nodded obediently. I looked at my foolish, naive son. He was completely blind to the deep-seated disgust swimming in Lily's eyes. If she actually became his stepmother, Liam's perfect life would turn into a living nightmare overnight. After Lily and Leo left, the house fell into a heavy silence. Greg began dramatically sighing, pacing the kitchen before shooting me a look of intense blame. "Look at this mess. You haven't been home to clean or organize anything for weeks. Where exactly have you been partying?" I looked at him with deadpan calmness. "Your wife disappears for half a month, and you are only asking about it now. Isn't it a little late to pretend to care? What exactly were you so busy doing that you couldn't manage a single text message?" His eyes widened in panic, unable to formulate a lie fast enough. The guilt was written all over his face. Just then, Liam sneered at me, his voice dripping with teenage cruelty. "You're always like this, so aggressive and overbearing. It's no wonder nobody likes you. You're nothing like Aunt Lily. She would never be as obnoxious as you." I chuckled coldly. "You've only experienced this, mother swap, for a couple of weeks, and you already have such profound insights. Maybe after a few years of living with her, you'll finally realize that I was the best mother you could ever have." He actually spat on the floor in front of me. "Don't flatter yourself. If it weren't for our DNA, I wouldn't even spit in your direction, let alone call you mom." Working himself into a frenzy, he stepped into my space and screamed right in my face. "You are totally unnecessary in this house. Can't you take a hint and just get the hell out?" I slowly turned my gaze to Greg. "Is that what you think too?" Greg lowered his eyes, his brow furrowing as he put on his best concerned father act. "Diana, you know I've never done anything to betray this marriage. I don't care about myself, but a child's mental and emotional well-being has to come first." I nodded in agreement. "You're absolutely right. Since that is the case, let's get a divorce." He froze. He stood there, completely dumbfounded, like a statue. Even Liam stopped shouting, his aggressive posture instantly deflating. "Don't try to bluff us." I smiled warmly. "I would never joke about something this wonderful." Liam's face lit up with excitement. He grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, print the papers right now before she changes her mind." Greg frowned and gently shoved Liam aside. "Stop talking nonsense. We can discuss this later." That was Greg to the core. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted the freedom to cheat, but he absolutely refused to be the one who pulled the trigger and took the blame for ruining the family. But I didn't let up. I pushed, and an hour later, he finally printed out a separation and asset division agreement. "For Liam's sake, we'll divorce for now. Once he is emotionally stable in the future, we can remarry," Greg said smoothly, trying to leave himself a backdoor. I briefly skimmed the document and tossed it back onto the coffee table. "The division of assets is wrong," I stated. He scowled. "There is nothing wrong with it. It is a standard 50-50 split of the house and the joint accounts." I leaned forward, looking him dead in the eye. "Under state law, the luxury SUV you bought Lily, the down payment you secretly put on her condo, and the thousands of dollars in allowance. You've been transferring her every month over the years. Half of all that marital property belongs to me." His face turned an ashen gray. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing in absolute shock. A deep, ugly flush of embarrassment and humiliation crawled up his neck, knowing he had been caught dead to rights and had no legal leg to stand on. He resentfully recalculated the assets, liquidating his private stocks to pay me the exact half of what he had squandered on his mistress. The first business day after the holiday weekend, we went straight to the courthouse and filed the papers, officially entering the mandatory 30-day separation period. When I was carrying the last of my boxes out to my car, Lily happened to be standing on our front lawn, ostensibly to see me off. She hid timidly behind Greg, looking like a fragile wilting flower. "Diana, I never imagined things would end up like this. I'm so sorry," she whispered, her eyes wide and innocent. I offered a serene smile. "If you two end up getting married, please treat my son well. Don't let him suffer any grievances." Lily nodded emphatically. "Of course. I have always treated children equally. I would never play favorites." Greg clicked his tongue, looking at me with feigned reproach. "What are you talking about? Lily and I aren't in that kind of relationship. I only helped her financially, because I felt pity for a struggling single mother." Don't let your imagination run wild. The sheer hypocrisy was nauseating. I didn't bother wasting another breath on either of them. I got into my car and drove away without looking back. From this day forward, nothing in that house had anything to do with me. But to my utter surprise, the moment I left, Greg suddenly started blowing up my phone with private text messages. The very next day after the divorce papers were filed, Greg started complaining to me via text. He said Leo had no manners, and immediately fought with Liam over the biggest bedroom. On the third day he texted again, whining about how exhausting it was to raise two teenage boys, especially one that wasn't his own. By the fifth day his messages were full of doubt about Lily. He complained that she made Liam do his own homework because he genuinely didn't know the answers, while Leo faked ignorance just to steal his mother's attention. Greg noted that Lily never used to be like this. I ignored every single message. I was busy living my best life, posting selfies on Instagram. I got a chic new haircut, took up Pilates, and learned how to do flawless makeup. My aura and mindset were healing, and I had zero time for their drama. Then, right before Christmas, Greg actually called me. He immediately started venting. "Every year for the holidays, we go back to my parents' house and Liam really misses his grandparents. But right before we were supposed to leave, I found out Lily only bought plane tickets for Liam to go with her to her parents' house out of state." He sighed heavily. "Liam is so heartbroken right now." Before he could say another word, Liam snatched the phone. "Mom, how could she do this to me? On the day of the mother swap, she was so sweet and gentle," I replied softly. "But honey, this is the mother you personally chose. I'm sure it is just a misunderstanding. Go act cute and beg her. I'm sure it will work out." His voice cracked with tears. "Mom, can you please not get a divorce? When you were still married to Dad, Aunt Lily treated me so nicely." I sneered internally. An ungrateful wolf cub will always be an ungrateful wolf cub. I could never expect him to feel genuine remorse. Keeping my tone perfectly sweet, I said, "No can do." I hung up immediately and ignored their subsequent calls. Instead, I calmly forwarded all of Greg's text messages and the recording of that phone call directly to Lily. She completely lost her mind. "You're already getting a divorce, and you're still stirring up trouble. Trying to turn the tables during the separation period, huh? Dream on. Greg might be mad at me now, but all I have to do is act a little sweet, and he'll cave completely." She clearly didn't understand Greg at all. Greg was a massive hypocrite. The person he loved most in the world was himself. He would never bear the stigma of abandoning his own son on the holidays, just to cater to her family. Sure enough, judging by social media updates, Lily and her son ended up compromising and following Greg to his parents' house in the Midwest. The day after the trip, my former sister-in-law called to give me the juicy gossip of what went down. To test whether Lily was fit to be a stepmother, Greg's mother deliberately favored Liam and repeatedly humiliated Leo. Desperate to prove her worth to her future in-laws, Lily chose to heavily favor Liam, completely ignoring her own son. My former sister-in-law overheard Lily whispering to Leo, begging him to just endure it for one more month until the divorce separation period was finalized. But Leo didn't wait. Not long after, he showed up looking for me. When Leo found me, he was holding his phone up, recording a video, and loudly calling me Mom right into the camera. "Mom, you look so pretty now," he said. I smiled politely. "I think you have the wrong person." He put on an act of nonchalance. Whatever, I decided that after the mother swap, we just never swapped back. "From today on, you are my mom." It was blindingly obvious he was acting out of spite, trying to use me to make Lily angry. I scoffed. "Sorry to burst your bubble, but I have absolutely no desire for a son like you." His face darkened instantly. He blocked my path and demanded, "You've lost everything. I'm the only one willing to be near you. What gives you the right to reject me?" I smoothly brushed his arm aside, completely unfazed. "I have money, time, freedom, a freelance career I love, and a family who raised and supports me. I am perfectly content." He froze, grinding his teeth. "But you lost your husband and your son. They were the most important people in your entire life." I offered a dry laugh. "If keeping them means losing myself, I'd rather throw them both away." He started crying, screaming at me. "You can't just throw them away. You need to go steal your son back. Don't let him keep monopolizing my mother." I shrugged. "There is nothing I can do about it. Your mom is just too perfect, everyone loves her." Suddenly, he grabbed my arm, his tone shifting into a desperate demand. "No, he stole my mom, so I'm going to steal his. You have to treat me exactly as well as my mom treats him." I sighed. "And how exactly am I supposed to do that?" "Just do what I wrote in that mom guide." Hearing his entitled, matter-of-fact tone, I actually wanted to laugh. I raised an eyebrow and nodded. "All right, since you're still a kid, I'll let you crash with me for a few days. But let's get one thing straight, I am not your mother, and I am definitely not following your stupid guide. If you want to stay under my roof, you play by my rules." He stared at me in silence for a few seconds. Before slowly nodding, I gave a small smile. I set up the guest room for him, drafted a strict daily study schedule, cooked him balanced, nutritious meals, and after tutoring him through his homework, I took him to the local PC gaming lounge to play video games. I treated him exactly how I used to treat my own son. The only difference was that Liam used to refuse to do any of these things with me, whereas Leo had no choice but to tag along. We played multiplayer games together. We even went snowboarding on the weekends. In the past, whenever I suggested these activities to Liam, he would scrunch his nose in disgust and ask if I was trying to embarrass him. I never understood why he firmly believed I was incapable of enjoying anything modern or fun, but having cold water thrown on my efforts always broke my heart. Now, experiencing these things with Leo was a surprisingly refreshing change of pace. On the first day, Leo was miserable, constantly checking his phone, clearly waiting for a text from someone. By the second and third days, genuine smiles began to appear on his face. He was pretty average at almost everything, but he possessed an unbelievable amount of self-confidence. Even when his test scores were abysmal, he would comfort himself by saying he was just a late bloomer. When he nearly crashed while snowboarding, and I pulled him to safety, he proudly declared himself the chosen one. After he brushed the snow off, he looked at me and said, "Aunt Diana, I had no idea you were so awesome. You're a pro on that snowboard." Unless my eyes deceived me, it was the first time he ever looked at me with genuine admiration. I taught him how to snowboard, how to study efficiently, and even some basic Spanish. I kept his schedule packed. My Instagram stories were full of our adventures. The first time a teacher praised his rapid academic improvement, he literally jumped up and hugged me in celebration. He posted 10 back-to-back updates on his social media, declaring that he too could be a genius. It was in that moment I felt absolute certainty there was never anything wrong with my parenting style. It only seemed flawed because Liam fundamentally despised me. Having found my answer, I knew my temporary arrangement with Leo had run its course. I had just finished packing his duffel bag, when he came bounding into the house energized. Aunt Diana, let's go to Comic-Con this weekend. Both of our favorite cosplayers are going to be there. His eyes dropped to the packed bag in my hands. His smile vanished instantly, and his voice hitched. Even his hands started trembling. Aunt Diana, what are you doing? I spoke calmly. You're not my son after all. I can't keep hosting you indefinitely. It is time for you to go home. Before he could say another word, an urgent, frantic voice rang out from the front porch. Diana, give me back my son. Leo's expression twisted, and he quickly yanked the front door open. The first thing I saw was Lily standing on the porch. Her hair was a greasy, tangled mess. Her eyes were swollen and bloodshot. She was wearing a mismatched, wrinkled tracksuit, and she had even put on 2 different sneakers. She looked old, exhausted, and utterly pathetic. It was a jarring, nightmarish contrast to the elegant, impeccably dressed woman she used to be. Leo seemed genuinely terrified by her appearance. It was probably the first time he had ever seen his mother look so unhinged. He subconsciously took 2 steps backward. Tears immediately cascaded down Lily's cheeks. Leo, please, come home with Mom. Leo's face hardened, and he turned his head away. I thought you liked Liam better. Go back and take care of him. I'm doing great here anyway. Way better than I ever was with you. My teacher even praised my grades yesterday. I guess I'm not the hopeless idiot with no academic talent you always said I was. Lily grabbed at her own hair, looking like she was on the verge of a total psychological breakdown. She looked exactly like I had in my previous life, when Liam drove me to the brink of insanity. No, you are my son, and you have to come back with me. Our lives are going to get better. I promise, from now on, you'll finally have a real father. Those words ignited Leo like a stick of dynamite. Don't you dare mention Greg to me. I hate him. He is not my dad. He will never be my dad. That much was true. In my past life, even though Greg secretly funneled money to Lily, he was never particularly kind to Leo. The 2 of them argued constantly, and after Greg and Lily eventually married, Greg rarely spent time with them, whereas my son, Liam, practically lived there. Crying hysterically, Lily shook her head. Deanna has brainwashed you. Don't listen to her lies. Come with me right now. Leo violently shoved her hand away, his face twisting with unfiltered disgust. I let out a soft chuckle. It is getting late. I'd appreciate it if both of you left now. I've already sold this house, and the new owners are coming by shortly for a walkthrough. Panic seized Leo's face. He grabbed my arm frantically. Mom, where are you moving? Take me with you. Out of nowhere, Lily's hand whipped through the air, delivering a stinging slap straight across Leo's face. The sharp crack echoed in the air, leaving a bright red handprint on the teenager's cheek. I am your mother, she shrieked, her voice tearing at the seams. Leo stood paralyzed, completely stunned by the blow. A moment later, he forcefully shoved her to the ground and sprinted away down the sidewalk, disappearing into the twilight. Watching this terrifyingly familiar scene play out pulled me violently back into the memories of my previous life. A lifetime of bitter solitude and unrewarded sacrifices. I slowly closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I looked out at the brilliant sunlit neighborhood. Thank God. All of that was finally in the past. The day before the mandatory separation period officially ended happened to be Liam's birthday. Greg bombarded me with dozens of text messages, demanding I show up to the party. He even threatened that if I didn't attend, he would refuse to finalize the divorce. When I arrived at the venue, Liam was eagerly tearing the wrapping paper off Lily's present. It was a top-of-the-line, $2,000 mountain bike. Liam practically jumped for joy, his eyes shining with pure adoration. Greg looked at Lily, his gaze noticeably softer than it had been in weeks. I've misjudged you lately, he murmured. You really do care about Liam. Even my former mother-in-law gave Lily an approving nod. Money really is a wonderful thing. It buys people's hearts so effortlessly. Suddenly, the room went quiet, and everyone turned to look at me. Diana, Greg said expectantly, where is your gift? Liam muttered under his breath. With her awful taste, what kind of decent gift could she possibly get me? Despite his sarcastic comment, I noticed his eyes darting toward my empty hands, clearly anticipating something. I remembered the nasty texts he had sent me while I was hosting Leo. He had accused me of having no conscience, abandoning my own flesh and blood to raise someone else's kid. I hadn't bothered replying to a single one. Now, I simply smiled and leaned into his insult. I figured Liam would hate whatever I bought anyway, so I saved myself the trouble and didn't buy anything. Everyone's faces dropped. Liam looked visibly furious. Lily seemed shocked. She clearly hadn't expected me to pass up a golden opportunity to grovel and win back my son's affections. Greg grabbed my arm and forcibly dragged me into a quiet corner of the room. "What is wrong with you?" he hissed angrily. "It is your son's birthday, and as his biological mother, you didn't even get him a gift. Do you seriously want to divorce me that badly?" I stared at him coldly, then burst into genuine laughter. "What? Do you actually think I've been acting this whole time?" His pupils dilated in shock. Gritting his teeth, he accused. "You've been dressing so nicely lately. You're seeing someone else, aren't you? Stop projecting your own pathetic behavior onto me. You know exactly what your intentions are." I snapped. "I have zero interest in arguing with you. Just show up on time tomorrow to sign the papers." He began pacing anxiously. "Diana, look. We really don't need to take it this far. Over the past few weeks I've done a lot of thinking. You are the woman who suits me best, and I see Lily clearly now. She is deeply flawed. I don't have the energy to break in a new wife," he continued. "Besides, Liam belongs to both of us. Lily's presence won't change anything. It just means one more person to love our son. Can't you just pretend you don't know anything and we go back to living like we used to?" I let out a harsh laugh. "Oh, I see. You get to play house with your mistress on the outside, while I stay home, slave away, and act as your unpaid maid. Is that your twisted fantasy of a perfect marriage?" He was momentarily speechless, offering a weak defense. "That is not what I meant." "I don't care what you meant. I have zero interest in listening." I turned to leave. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Fine, I promise you. I'll cut off all contact with Lily. Are you happy now?" I looked at him with absolute revulsion. I couldn't care less. Suddenly, Liam charged over and furiously pried Greg's fingers off my wrist. "Dad, why are you begging her to stay? Aunt Lily is amazing to me. I want her to be my mom. We don't need her. Let's go." Greg stared deeply into my eyes. "Diana, just say one soft word, apologize, and I'll drop the divorce. This is your last chance." I raised my hand and gave him the middle finger, standing a short distance away. Lily watched this exchange, a storm of panic and rage brewing in her eyes. Desperate to secure her standing, she quickly wheeled the expensive mountain bike over to Liam, forcing a bright fawning smile. "Liam, honey, why don't you try riding it? If the seat isn't comfortable, or you don't like the color, Aunt Lily will buy you an even better one tomorrow." Liam beamed, reaching out to grip the handlebars. Suddenly, a blur of motion rushed past me. I didn't know how long he had been hiding outside listening, but Leo suddenly burst into the room. He violently shoved Liam aside and grabbed the bike, inspecting it with erratic, manic energy. Liam panicked and tried to wrestle it back. "That is my bike. Give it back." Leo was a half head taller and significantly broader than Liam. With a hard shove to the chest, he easily sent Liam sprawling to the floor. "Get away from me, you fat pig." Seeing her carefully repaired relationship with her future stepson about to be ruined by her biological son, Lily gasped in horror. "Leo, stop being so dramatic. Calm down. I'll buy you one later today. Okay?" "I don't want it." Leo's emotions were completely unhinged. Spit flew from his lips, landing directly on Lily's face as he screamed. His eyes were bloodshot, and he roared like a wounded animal. "The only people you care about are this man and his fat pig of a son. I don't even exist to you. Fine, I'm done living. You can all be happy without me." He threw the bicycle to the ground. Reaching into his jacket pocket, he pulled out a sharp pocket knife and viciously slashed it across his own forearm. Dark red blood immediately poured from the wound, a shocking, gruesome sight against his pale skin. Looking at the blood, A dizzying wave of déjà vu hit me. I had lived through this exact nightmare in my past life, except back then, I was the one holding the knife, desperately mutilating myself. And Liam hadn't shown a fraction of the terror that Lily was displaying now. Greg and Liam had simply watched me bleed with absolute apathy, treating me like invisible air, casually chatting and watching TV while I sobbed. I had been so pathetic, genuinely believing that self-harm would finally earn my son's pity and make him look at me with love. Compared to my son's cold-blooded sociopathy, Lily was practically a saint. She let out a piercing scream, dropping to her knees and begging Leo to stop, but the adrenaline had already taken over. Laughing hysterically, Leo slashed his arm a second time. He looked up, his eyes locking onto mine. Behind the madness there was a desperate, agonizing plea, a silent hope that I would say something, anything to stop him. Lily caught the direction of his gaze and scrambled toward me, clutching at my clothes. "Diana, please, you have to talk to him. Ever since he came back, he constantly talks about how amazing you are, how I'll never be half the mother you are. Say something. He'll listen to you." She completely abandoned her dignity, dropping her head to the floor in a desperate kowtow. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was a pathetic, jealous homewrecker trying to steal what was yours. Please, I'm begging you, save my son. He is the only child I have." Before I could even open my mouth, Liam furiously wedged himself between us. "Don't you dare listen to him," Liam yelled. "You are my biological mom. And you are the stepmom my dad is going to marry. You both belong to me. Neither of you is allowed to care about anyone else." A vicious, murderous look flashed across Lily's tear-stained face. She swung her arm out and slapped Liam across the face with devastating force, nearly knocking his jaw out of alignment. "Shut your damn mouth," she shrieked. "If my son dies, I will kill you." Greg exploded. He yanked Liam behind him and glared down at Lily. "Your son is the one throwing a psychopathic tantrum. Why the hell are you hitting my kid? I never realized how vicious and malicious you actually are." Lily's psyche finally snapped. She grabbed Greg by the collar, screaming in his face, "My son is mutilating himself. Are you blind? How can you be so heartless? Do you know how many times I've had to punish and neglect my own flesh and blood this past month just to kiss your ass and win your favor?" Liam stared at her, his eyes wide with horror and disbelief. "Aunt Lily, you didn't mean any of it." "Of course I didn't mean it. You idiot. Who in their right mind would love a monster who despises his own mother?" Dead silence fell over the room. Lily scrambled frantically toward Leo, lunging to grab the knife. I let out a heavy sigh and extended my hand toward the boy. "Leo, give me the knife. Go with your mom to the hospital and get that bandaged." His nostrils flared, and his eyes instantly welled with fresh tears. In the next fraction of a second, he did something I could have never anticipated. His hand, which had been slowly lowering to surrender the blade to me, suddenly reversed direction. With terrifying speed and force, he plunged the knife directly into his own heart. The sunny afternoon fell dead quiet, shattered only by Lily's endless, blood-curdling screams. Leo died that year, at only 13 years old. No one would ever know what flashed through his mind in his final second. But in the days that followed, a hazy memory surfaced from my previous life. When I was lying in that sterile hospital bed, waiting to die in total despair, he came to visit me. In my past life, Leo had always looked down on me with the same arrogant disdain as his mother. But when I was drawing my final breaths, he was the only person who bothered to come. By then, he had been living in Europe for years and rarely came back to the States for holidays. Yet on that day, he crossed oceans and continents, stepped into my cramped, dim hospital room, and simply said, "I'm sorry." His voice had been a whisper, but I had heard it. That single distant memory was the real reason I had agreed to take him into my home in this life. Lily's eyes swelled shut from a severe infection caused by her endless crying. She was hospitalized for a long time, and after being discharged, she completely disappeared from the neighborhood. It was during this period that Greg unexpectedly tracked me down. He showed up at my new apartment with Liam in tow, clutching an enormous expensive bouquet of roses. He looked at me with eager, desperate eyes. "Honey, let's start over. I swear from now on, it will only ever be the three of us. Liam shuffled his feet awkwardly, looking down at the floor before mumbling. Mom, I missed you. Let's go home. I promise I'll listen to you from now on. I let out a dry, exasperated laugh. If you refuse to cooperate with the separation agreement, we can just go to court, I said coldly. I don't care. I have all the time in the world. Tears spilled over Liam's cheeks. He ran forward and grabbed my sleeve. Mom, I know I was wrong. You're the only person in the world who actually loves me. Please don't abandon me. I'll be good. I'll behave. I promise I'll never look down on you again. I took a deep breath. Staring down at him with ice in my veins, ringing in my ears was the cruel, impatient voice from my previous life. You're 75 years old. What's the point of treating you? Just do us a favor and die already. With a sneer, I forcefully peeled his fingers off my jacket, turned my back on them both, and walked away. They didn't give up immediately. They stalked and harassed me for over a month. Everywhere I went, I was ambushed by their pathetic apologies. Just as I was preparing to file a formal lawsuit, Greg finally contacted me to say he would sign the final divorce decree. I didn't bother asking what changed his mind. I signed the paperwork, legally and permanently severing myself from that toxic, suffocating nightmare. I changed my phone number, deleted all my old social media, and moved to a quiet, picturesque mountain town up north to begin an early, peaceful retirement. One lazy afternoon, while I was sipping tea on my porch, my mother called to give me the latest hometown gossip. Greg had suffered a catastrophic fall. According to her, Greg had been inspecting a high-rise construction site when he received a phone call from home. The argument had been so vitriolic that he stopped paying attention to his surroundings, lost his footing, and fell from the scaffolding. His spine was shattered. He was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. My mother also mentioned that Liam, unable to find me, frequently went to my parents' house to cry and complain about his life. As it turned out, the reason Greg had agreed to the divorce was that Lily had suddenly reappeared. She threw herself at Greg, seduced him, and fell to her knees begging for forgiveness. She swore that if he married her, she would dedicate the rest of her life to taking care of him and Liam. Greg, ever the arrogant fool, believed her. He divorced me immediately, but after they got married, things changed. To the outside world, Lily played the role of the flawless, self-sacrificing stepmother. Behind closed doors, however, she began inflicting a masterclass of psychological torture on Liam. She used toxic positivity to slowly crush him. She gaslit him, destroyed his self-esteem, and convinced him he was entirely worthless. Even when Liam studied hard and managed to improve his grades, Lily would look at his report card with a tragic, disappointed sigh and say, "Oh, I really thought you were capable of doing better." The neighbors were utterly baffled. Lily always seemed so sweet and supportive in public, yet Liam was rapidly deteriorating, acting like a depressed, traumatized orphan who was despised by the world. When I heard this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was Lily's true superpower. She was an absolute master of emotional manipulation and covert abuse. Now, Greg was a crippled invalid trapped in a wheelchair, and Liam was only in the 7th grade. Their suffering was only just beginning.
That's all for today. I'm Lina. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing stories every week. Thanks for watching.